Greetings, I am Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. Today we're going to continue our talking about BESM. We're going to finish up talking about defects, and then the finishing touches you're going to make to your character. So after today's episode, your character is pretty much going to be done. There's a few other things I want to talk about still that have to deal with character, but we'll get into them next time. So let's start with it. Defects. Now defects are divided into 4 categories: lesser, serious, greater, and radical. It tells you how many character points you get for taking these defects. The higher up on the list, the more points you get, but the more it's going to affect your character. Now the points you get, which are bonus points, you can use them to spend on anything we talked about earlier, any of the attributes, your stats, your skills, anything like that. You can get the unknown power attribute. That would be something that would await Game Master, or you can decide on a little later, or you can just actually save those points for spending later on anyway, where you have more control of it. Unknown power is most likely going to be under your Game Master's control, or he might give you something appropriate. All the defects must be appropriate to your character and appropriate to the setting. If you take a defect that in the setting has no effect on your character whatsoever, you wouldn't get any points for it. It would just be something that's there. Now, there is also more circumstance for the amount of points you can get for taking defects. If your character would have a dual identity, like if they're a superhero, for example, where they have 2 separate identities. If your defect is on one of the identities and not the other, most likely your Game Master would give you half points for that defect. You'd have to discuss this sort of thing with your Game Master when you're designing your character. Now, for simple rules, most characters are going to have 10 in defects, a total of 10 points added to their ones they can spend from defects. That's a very simplistic way of looking at it, and that's the general way you're going to do. Unless you want to have more defects or less, you talk it over. You'd most likely just tell your characters, do 10 points in defects. It's some bonus you get, but it's some bad things that the Game Master can use to add your character to the story. So next, we finish up our character with all the derived values you have. Now, every character has a base combat value. The base combat value is equal to the sum of all 3 of your stats, body, mind, and soul, added together and divided by 3. So if you'd have 3 in each of those, your base combat value would be 3. Now, there is an attack combat value and a defense combat value, but these 2 are separate because certain attributes can affect these and can increase or decrease them. There is, of course, the attack combat mastery, which would add 1 per rank in that to each of these, or the defense combat mastery is the same. Now, the base damage multiplier is another value. It starts at 5. That, again, is increased by attributes that you might have. Next up is your health points. It's how much damage you can take and how much health you have. This is equal to your body plus your soul times 5. After that's energy points. Now, energy points, if they go to 0, you go unconscious, and you can spend 10 to add +1 to a roll after it's been rolled. So it's before you know the result of the roll. I've rolled something, I don't know if I've succeeded or not. I could add 1 in by spending some energy points and straining myself. Now I can do this a number of times up to my skull score, which means I could, if I have a soul of 3, I could spend 30 of my energy points and add +3 to a roll. Now the amount of energy points you have is equal to your mind plus your soul times 5. Now every character also has a shock value. A shock value is the amount of damage you take in one attack that could possibly stun you. There are rules for that I'm going to talk about later on, but you just have to think about that a higher shock value is better. Now your shock value is equal to your health divided by 5. And it can be increased from that. That's your base shock value. There's, again, also abilities that you can use to increase your shock value. It can be no higher than half of your total health points. So if I have a health of 60, I can only have a shock value up to 30. Though my base, of course, with that 60 would be 12. Alright, so that's all I wanted to talk about today for BESM. I went over all the defects and the finishing touches to kind of get the derived values on your character. Next time we'll talk about some more stuff, some of the basic rules, and other things you can do to affect your character. So if you have any questions or any comments or anything you want to say, leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It shows your support. Another way of supporting is to subscribe. We're always looking for more citizens of the Empire. If you know anybody that would like to see this video or would learn something from it, please share it. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.